Hey, welcome to Dark Loops. And why is this so good? Tonight, we discuss Korean supergroup BTS. Joining me in the conversation, Dr. Suejung Han, Dr. Elizabeth Nicole Smith, Miss Yvin Shin, Mrs. Marissa Jordan-Lenz, and Miss Marissa Robertson. Before we begin tonight's discussion of BTS, I offer this cover of BTS Black Swan as a gesture of love and condolence to the Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders community. When we support each other, when we elevate each other, when we carry ourselves in ways that reveal a love and appreciation of difference, we not only provide an environment that affords everyone the opportunity to examine who they are and what they want to become, we also expand our own lives. We become bigger, more respectable versions of ourselves. We become anti-racists. Hello, and welcome to Dark Loops. Why is this so good? I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher from Illinois State University. And in tonight's episode, we discuss international supergroup BTS. Joining me in tonight's discussion are some amazing BTS fans. Please introduce yourselves and tell us, what is your favorite BTS memory?
You want me to start? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Marissa, Mr. Host Dude. My favorite BTS memory. So all of them are related to a concert. They're just with different people. So my first memory ever is with Suejung and Yvin, who you'll meet later. I bought the ticket that day, that morning, and then we drove, and it was my first BTS concert. So that's one of the memories for sure.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to the other Marissa.
As you said, I am the other Marissa. So I am Marissa's friend, and it's my favorite memory as well is my first one with BTS going to a concert. And I think what amazed me was like the fans. I had never been to a concert where the fans were so intense, I guess. We get there and there's girls screaming, everyone's running around, and I'm like, I have never been in a place like this before.
Oh my God.
This is insane. But you get the energy of everyone, and that like makes you feel it as well because you feel it off of everybody else, which was really cool.
So I've never been to a BTS concert. I was supposed to go to the concert this summer, but COVID crashed that. But I did go to a K-pop concert with Marissa back in the fall, both of you actually, back in the fall. And the comment about fan intensity, all they were doing for 45 minutes before the show, they would put videos on. And any time they did a shot of some guy, the whole audience was screaming as if we were on stage. I mean, it was, I've been to my share of rock concerts and absolutely nothing like that. Suejung.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
My name is Suejung Han. I'm Dr. Jordan's colleague at ISU, and I'm a counseling psychologist. I do not analyze K-pop groups from a cultural critics perspective, but I do have a lot of reflections as an ARMY myself. First generation from South Korea, and also as a mom of another ARMY member who is the second generation Korean American immigrant. So yes, I'm happy to be here.
Favorite memory.
Oh, favorite memory. Thank you. Favorite memory is when I went to the concert with Marissa and Yvin. So we sat separately. So Yvin sat by herself because on a better seat or something.
That's not what I heard. I heard you guys had the better seats.
Yvin had already had her ticket.
No, I'm just teasing.
Being by yourself and being able to see them better on the stage. And then Marissa and I sat together, and when there was a one member's face on the screen, the entire fan was like going crazy. And I Marissa making this face like, it's a little too much. And then right there screaming all together.
That's awesome. Yvin?
Hi, I'm Yvin. I'm Dr. Hans. Oh, I'm Dr. My favorite memory would be my first concert, which wasn't with Marissa or my mom, but we did like the screaming thing right before the concert. And then when it started, we were like, we have another 2.5 hours of when we grew up, I was like, don't scream. Whatever you do, don't do it. Don't do it.
Elizabeth.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Smith. 한국 이름은 이방실입니다. And my pronouns are she, her. I am a Korean-Irish licensed clinical psychologist. Like a lot of people have already said, that energy is something that is very much something that stands out about BTS. And it's so permeable. I even feel it with all of you right now. And
very much so.
Even though, like, for a lot of us, we just met. And I, too, was supposed to go to this most recent concert at the Bear Stadium.
Yeah.
And it was canceled, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess a more recent memory that was also really cool is their part in social activism, even with the Black Lives Matter movement, which is super cool. And something else that I really respect and get excited about is just how permeable their energy can be and how do they utilize that platform.
That's fantastic. My favorite BTS memory actually, I was at work one day and I got an email from Marissa saying, Dad, you got to watch this video. And it was the BTS video that had been done, the dance that had been done to Black Swan by the MN Dance Company. And Marissa and I used to watch American's Best Dance Crew all the time. And if you know me, you know that I love good dancing. I just love good dancing. And I saw that video and I was blown away. And then so I looked up the lyrics, and I have to say the lyrics blew me away. And I said, wait a minute, 20-something young men are writing this, right? You know, being scared that this might be the last time they're ever creative. What is that? And I wrote back to Marissa and I said, if you want to understand what drives me, listen to those lyrics, because I have to admit, I wake up every morning and after my 2 cups of coffee, when I'm actually being creative again, I thank the Lord that I can do it again, because when I can't do that, I can't be me. So that was my first introduction to BTS and my favorite memory. So let's go ahead and start off with favorite songs. And we'll start with Yvin. What's your favorite BTS song?
I was not emotionally prepared to be called first, but I think my favorite song would be Run from their album Hwayeonyeonghwa back in 2015. I entered the fandom right after it was released, so I remember those were the first videos I really watched. And I was like, wow, okay. Guess this is my life now.
There you go. Anyone have comments on Run?
I think it's a good choice, especially because it came in when she entered, which is similar to mine as well.
Sure. And while you have the floor, Marissa, what's your favorite BTS song?
So mine is actually Truth Untold. I think it varies, but I think it's mostly because of being at the concert at that time and being around them at that time, and it being a very like ballady, emotional song. It really, got me in, I guess.
Excellent. Other Marissa, what's your favorite song?
Oh, I'm the other Marissa now.
Yeah, we have to split that up. It's going to develop a complex if I keep calling her other.
So my favorite song, so I picked Airplane Part 2. I heard the song, and we actually were listening to it at work today, and I was like, yeah, when I heard the song, it was on a rotation for a very, very, very long time, and I would just listen to it over and over again. It just was different than anything I had heard before. It's very Latin sounding, and to come from Asian singers, it was kind of cool to hear them do this cultural overlap thing.
Well, yeah, let's spend a little time on that, because I again, my experiences with Seven, Map of the Soul, I'll be honest. And if I go back, and Marissa will show me stuff from earlier work, it seems like they're becoming a bit more culturally intersectional in terms of the styles they're singing in. I could be wrong. You guys can tell me. Does that sound like a reasonable statement, or?
I don't know if it's recent. I feel like with a lot of K-pop groups, they go in and out of different variations of different cultures rather than something static. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, the current trend within K-pop, it seems right now, is very almost kind of Bollywood sounding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just them taking things that they said are cool and putting it in their music.
Right.
Trendy.
Yeah, and then it becomes trendy, and then it just keeps going and going and going. So yeah, I think, like Marissa said, it's been around for a bit, but I would agree that they are using it more now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of, I'm going to use the word impressed by what I would call the distribution of world sound that I heard on Seven. There is a bit of a Bollywood flair here and there, and then there's a straight up American rap, and then there's a straight up boy band songs, and then there's Black Swan, whatever you want to call that. Sorry, but just beautiful music, I would argue. Elizabeth, favorite song?
It's hard to narrow it down to just one.
Yeah. Well, you can say I got two or three, but this is the favorite, and if you want.
Yeah, so one thing is definitely going to be more mood-based, what's going on for me. If I'm tired, I want something a little bit more upbeat. But I will say, as far as some of my favorite songs, I definitely really think that The Last is wonderful in talking about stigma and mental health. I think that is really an amazing piece, especially when we're talking about some aspects of Korean culture and how mental illness is viewed and mental wellness in general. Another thing that I really like about it is how vulnerable it is, especially coming from this perspective of masculinity, and to be able to talk about those things really resonates with me, as well as Not Today, I think is a really great kind of just let's pump it up.
Well, you raised a really a really cool issue about vulnerability, masculinity. And I wouldn't mind having a brief conversation about how you and others on the panel might, through the work of BTS, get an image of masculinity and vulnerability that you think might be different than what we have in the United States, or maybe they're not different at all. Anyone want to comment on that? Suejung and I have had spontaneous conversations about this, because I know that from a U.S. white male perspective, whatever that might mean, I look at BTS and I experience, there's a view of masculinity that I see that I didn't have the pleasure of living in, is what I would argue. So I'm wondering, is there a difference or not?
So from my perspective, they didn't look like they were presenting themselves as less masculine at all. I mean, their styling or their choreography, I mean, they didn't look, I would not have questioned their masculinity at all if I had been in Korea.
Right.
It changed. I mean, I left the country 15 years ago, so that might have changed. But to me, they didn't look more feminine or less masculine.
And you would
perspective instead.
And one of the things you said there was that from a Korean perspective, you wouldn't have seen anything different about them as being masculine. Does that mean that within Korean culture, this is, or do they even really talk about masculinity in Korean culture? In other words, is that a dimension that they're not even really partitioning?
Well, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Elizabeth, and then we'll come back to Suejung.
Well, so when looking at standard male acceptance of masculinity, portrayal and skincare and hair color and fashion, Korean men are much more likely to do facials with their girlfriends. Like a cisgendered straight man is more likely to do those things with his girlfriend than an American man that isn't typically as embraced,
right,
to do their hair coloring, to have the kind of fashion flair and things. At the same time, for a lot of musical artists like David Bowie, like Prince, there tends to be a little bit of flair. And that was definitely very accepted in American culture. But one of the big standout pieces is that this is a band, this is a group, and that definitely very much differs when looking at how an artist can be in America, which is like solo artists are much more common right now. We no longer have NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. They occasionally do comebacks, and we love it when that happens, but that isn't part of the current paradigm in American music, where it is very common in Korean bands. And part of that is more of the collectivistic cultural pieces to that and the camaraderie pieces, and that it's totally okay to have really great skin and take care of your hair and, do funky different colors and display different personality quirks in your fashion in a group of other guys and not have that question with your sexuality. Whereas in American culture, it a lot of times is questioned a little bit more so.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the research I've looked at indicates that in what I would call a holist culture, you have more relational types of collectivism, whereas in an individualist culture, you have more group-based, prop-based, commodity-based forms of collectivism, in the sense that in individualist cultures, people organize themselves more around how they're different from another group. Whereas in a collectivist or a holist culture, people are collectivist in the sense of more relationally, I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm your friend. And those are the foundational collectives. Does that make any sense? It sounds similar to what you just said, but.
That's a very true thing. And I mean, there's the pieces, like you said, like more brother. So even in addressing one another, you know, if it's like someone's older than you, then they get the title of a sibling. So like for me, as a person that identifies as a woman, I'm called 언니 by other people that identify as women, or those that identify as male, they call me 누나 as an older person. And if I am younger, I don't get the title. I am just like Liz.
No, I mean, that's fascinating because it goes by in daily life and we don't recognize it so much. But, you know, in the United States, we don't even have two versions of you. We have informal you, and that's it. And then maybe a professional title, but no relational, you know, maybe grandma, maybe aunt, but they're always, you know, oh, well, I'll stop there.
But so, yeah, well, you get that titling, but you also, and people who are familiar with like K-drama are also going to acknowledge, you know, that sometimes a girlfriend will call her older boyfriend with title of oppa, like older brother. And so she'll be like, oppa!
Okay.
So
No,
there is that piece too, but that is not seen in the same kind of brother-sister relationship as you would with your family, but more of, this is how close we are.
Yeah.
You are like the same as me.
And it's built into how you even address each other in public. Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Suejung, favorite song?
I could not narrow and like Elizabeth said, it really depends on my mood. My favorite, my very, 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 very first favorite is Fire. I like that powerfulness of the song, and that really, you know, boosted my energy and like burn it up and like help me just let out my frustration of the day and things like that. And when I'm kind of sad or stressed out, the Magic Shop definitely a lot with me. And I also loved Seesaw by Sugar, particularly the lyrics. And I think that goes back to the vulnerability piece that Liz mentioned. And I mean, although traditional Korean men would be more willing to, you know, put on makeups and put on some, you know, feminine looking clothings, but it would be harder for them to acknowledge their emotions or soft side or vulnerabilities. And I think in that sense, they were willing to show their emotional vulnerabilities in the lyrics. So that was a little bit of maybe.
Do you all see BTS as leaders in this dimension? In other words, there are a lot of K-pop bands. Is it something that all K-pop bands do, or is there something special about BTS leading this kind of take on masculinity?
BTS is more worldwide. To a lot of other K-pop groups that stay in Korea, or I feel like BTS kind of hit the world.
I'm wondering I mean, of course the dancing is amazing, but I'm wondering if some of their willingness to take a little more risk about things like vulnerability and masculinity actually bought them some power, not power, but some influence in other, you know, in the United States In other words, they would be sort of doing something the other K-pop bands weren't. I gotta tell you, what made me stick around to listen to all of Seven was the lyrics to Black Swan and On. These weren't things that most 20-year-olds write, and they were heavily influenced by Carl Jung, which I thought was very, very cool. So, my favorite, of course, it's obvious. My favorite BTS song is Black Swan, and what's fantastic about it is, of course, the lyrics, and then this group's commitment to doing it in many ways. So, my first exposure was the video by MN Dance Company, and then for Christ's sake, I saw this video, this live performance they did on James Corbin was just unbelievable. It was live, and I love live music. And one of them, I think it was which one got kicked in the face? J-Hope got kicked in the face, and I didn't know it until someone told me, and I went back and I looked for it. I mean, when I study perception and action, and when I see that level of movement fidelity, that level of coordination, it just speaks volumes about the amount of work it took to make that happen. And then the choreography in relation to the visual background was just one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've seen in a long time. So yeah, Black Swan, top down, I would argue an amazing artistic achievement. So anyone want to say something about Black Swan? Because it is such a good song. No? Okay. Let's go on to favorite videos. Yvin obviously has something she wants to say. So I could see her over there saying, "This is young, I'm ready.
Well, I was like, what are you going to say? Because I don't.
Go ahead.
I guess if you're talking about music videos, it'll be Spring Day for sure. Vibes are immaculate. But if we're talking like general videos, I really like Golden Studio videos. Like whenever he goes on a trip, the cinematography and the way he edits can really tell that he's enjoying what he's doing.
Oh, so that's interesting. So you're referring not to a dance video that someone in my age would look for on MTV, right? You're talking about travel videos that someone made while they're part of the BTS crew. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. All right. So I'll throw my favorite video out there, and it's just the unrepentant dance quality of On. The dancing in On, first of all, it's all shot in the same place. And what I can't stand about videos, I got to be honest with you, is the change of perspective and background every 3 times a second. I'd rather see the performance. I'd rather see the work. I'd rather see the struggle to actually have those people working together in that space. Now, it's clear that they had multiple cameras. They did multiple takes, but they even choreographed with the drone. They choreographed with the drone. It was crazy cool. And I don't know what part of the song you'd call it, but the part where Jimin takes a front and it's like the break in the song, it's like Kung Fu Throwdown. It is amazing. And for me, as someone who loves to watch dance, I can't tell you how many times I watched that video after I saw that it was available. Someone else volunteer their favorite video or comment on On.
On is very good, though. Very good. And
On
Jimin
is
is
rocking.
my favorite. Jimin kills it.
Yeah, Jimin kills it.
Totally. Just like he did in Black Swan on Corbin, man. I mean, he brings the drama.
The Jimin songs, for sure.
It's a Jimin time, for sure.
We can move on from favorite videos. We can talk about your favorite member. Who has a favorite BTS member? Because I do, so.
You do?
Of course I do.
I want to hear yours.
All right, I'll tell you mine, and then you all have to promise to tell me yours. Jimin, by far. Why? Because he's the drama. And what I mean by that is not over the top childish drama, but very adult internal drama. And he's able to manifest that in his dancing. It's just, I love, I'll have to edit this. The guy who did Chicken Soup.
J-Hope.
J-Hope is by far the best hip hop dancer in the group. But the stuff that Jimin does, like when they were on Corbin and they did Black Swan and they all lined up at an angle and then he sort of did this bizarre 4-count dance across the front of them. It just made it art. And you can laugh at me if you want, but I just love to watch him dance. And they use him so well in relation to everyone else's talent. So he's definitely my favorite. Now someone else has to say a favorite. All right, Marissa, your favorite.
We have two. Which one?
You.
So my favorite is Jungkook.
He's what?
What?
He does the solo in On, right?
The bridge.
Yeah, beautiful piece of singing.
Yeah, he's my favorite because I usually gravitate towards singers. With all of the groups that we like, most of my favorites are singers. so it's a thing, I guess.
Is he considered the best singer in the group?
Yeah, he's lead singer or main singer. I don't know how they list
the
things anymore.
Yeah.
It's one of his major contributions for sure.
Yeah, yes, it is.
How about the other Marissa?
So my favorite is Jin, and not because of any talent that he has. So they are all talented. They're all talented. But for me with Jin, it's the fact like his personality is very goofy and young. Even though he's the oldest, he doesn't have that like I'm the oldest vibe, which is I vibe with. So I think I like his like goofy personality.
Elizabeth, who's your favorite?
I'm gonna go with lyricists. So J-Hope or Suga.
Is there a particular lyric that one of them did that you heard and you just said, "Damn, that's good"?
I would say.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
I mean, I talked about like full songs.
Yeah.
Before, but like just a few lyrics.
Let
me think of just a few.
That's fine. Yvin, favorite member?
It would either have to be Indy or Taeyong, so either Suga or P. And I think Suga's been my favorite since the beginning, but I really do like their outlook, their like perspective and the lens that they view it with. They're not similar, but the fact that they both each have such like unique lenses that they view the world with really translates to the way they approach like being in the group and how they approach like independent projects. So it's always really interesting to like just hear them talk and to hear different interpretations of things that I see and that I don't really interpret the same way.
Right. So when you listen to the members of the group talk to each other, and you get this sense that these are, at least I get this sense, these are some pretty well-grounded, mature young men. Do you end up asking yourselves question, yeah, but I wonder what they're really like? Or do you get the sense that, in fact, what you're watching at that moment is not product, but them? If that question makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that they obviously like have to be at least cordial with each other if they're mad at each other. And recently I watched part of their 7th birthday party video, and there was a part where Jimin and Taeyong were talking, and they were like, "Remember back when we were like mad at each other and we didn't even talk to each other?" I was like, "Man, when did that happen?" 20.
Yeah.
17, and I remembered watching videos from back then, and I had no idea.
Right.
So I think that there's a level of like, you have to be cordial in the moment, but they are also very candid with how they talk about past conflicts. Like, "Oh yeah, I got really mad at you that one day," or like, "Remember when we didn't talk for 2 weeks 2 years ago?" And I think that really contrasts with like all of the scandals going out now with like AOA and like one member, this member bullied me for 18 years and I never.
Yikes.
Yeah, no, I this kind of goes back to something I asked earlier. This band seems special to me, and it in the sense that they're willing to talk. It seems like they're talking about how they honestly feel, and it seems like they're comfortable in that vulnerable, open skin in ways that a lot of performers aren't. Or when I see it, I feel like it's an act. I just feel there's a lot of authenticity when I watch these guys. Suejung, who's your favorite member?
Um,
You can have my favorite member. I saw you get excited.
the questions about the favorite really kind of makes me wonder if I am really indecisive, or if it is just I like them all for different reasons. I like that types of video for different reasons, and it's really kind of hard to pick one favorite.
Right.
But if I have to pick one, that's Jimin. His choreography, his dance is just at a level.
Yeah.
I admire that level of excellence, but he puts everything, into his every single move, and I can feel it. I'm just maybe the last person who can dance, but I can just feel how he puts everything into every single move, and that's really moving itself. And so the videos, I like the actual music videos as a final product, but I enjoy watching some of the dance practice videos.
That's great stuff.
Even during the practice, you can tell they're just fully there. They just give everything that they have. It's just really, I don't know, it's beyond impressive.
I agree. One thing about the practice videos is they only show you the practice videos when they're about 80 to 90% there. In other words, I've never seen a practice video where they're banging into each other, where they're all trying the move for the first time. And I appreciate that. But like I said, when you see this stuff, like what they did on Corbin Live, you just can't do that stuff. You just can't not hit other people, be that close. And, your comment on Jimin, the 100% commitment to the extreme emotion of the dance, and yet it's still a dance and not a fit, right? That's crazy. That takes an incredible amount of talent to let yourself go that much, but not be what we would call out of control. And of course, when the whole group is doing their gig, it's just crazy how 100% it's there. So please do. Yeah.
So for Jin, for Marissa, so I don't know if you watched this recent episode of another Korean show that featured Jin. So Jin traveled to a country in Korea, and you kind of visit and cook stuff for the elderly people in the small town or something. And so Jin is known to be really kind of goofy and funny, but he also showed his really traditional, nice, well-behaved Korean young man side, like polite, showing deference to the elderly, and the type of really kind of well-behaved, nice young man, kind of traditional Korean young man. So he showed that, and a lot of Korean ajumas, married women, were really cheering about that. And I also want to mention about Suga that Yvin mentioned. She said that each member show different perspectives on things. Some are more optimistic, some are calmer like Jimin or Jin. Some are more pessimistic, but at the same time kind of authentic like Suga. But seeing them, at least, based on how they presented themselves in the lyrics, seeing them kind of grow, it may sound a little cheesy, but seeing them change over time in terms of their perspectives, it was really fun and rewarding to see. Like, and I think that also gave a lot of good messages to the young fans.
Well,
Yep.
they're so authentically committed to love. I mean, it's not something you see often. You often see people talk about love, but you don't see them carry themselves the way they do on the topic. So I have a question for all of you. What is ARMY? Anybody jump in. What is ARMY?
Oh God.
You guys have to protect me from being Twittered to death here too. You better have a good answer. What is ARMY?
So to me, I would describe ARMY as a group of people that's willing to do anything for BTS. So
Die hard fans.
Yeah, like love them to death. They're anything they do is purely just want BTS to do well. So like they stay up or get up till 4 a.m. to watch their online concerts. They buy ridiculously expensive merchandise things and just keep doing it. People go to multiple concerts. Like there's people all over YouTube that will go to literally every single concert and they'll just record it. They'll defend people to all ends of the world. Like if you bash a single BTS member, they will come after you. And I've seen it happen. I've seen videos of people being like, well, I don't understand why you would want to watch BTS. I've seen comments, and literally the comments are all ARMY being like, get him.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I got their address, I got their social media.
Yeah.
Like they are just willing to do anything possible to make sure that BTS stays in their...
I bet you if we made a graph out of how many people are reacting to a tweet and how long it takes them to do it, you would see swarm behavior. That's not an insult. That's meant to be descriptive, right? In other words, they're all shaping each other's Twitter behavior in real time, bringing people in and such. How does one know when one is ARMY?
I mean, I think that, Marissa, your response to, what is ARMY was kind of scary. There are definitely people who are passionate and follow like their sports team, or they're passionate about, a variety of different things. And I think when it comes to the idea of like what is ARMY, it again, comes to that camaraderie piece of it's the identified people who are part of this fandom, who are kindred in that love for the band and for the group and for the messages and the meaning that they have. What be called in English? Their
creed,
like their platform that they're, that they stand on. And I think, when you ask the question of like, how do you know if you are part of the ARMY? I think there are varying degrees.
For sure.
And, of course, there's going to be someone that devotes a large amount of their time and energy and resources. And they may do that in different ways. So some of people may do that with their financial resources, but some people may also do that by listening to the albums over and over, or watching the videos over and over, or even supporting someone else, even though they don't really get it and they're just like, I don't know why, but I'm buying this shirt for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they're like so into this, but
Mm-hmm.
because that could even be partly considered like, hey, you're down with the army because you're spending the money on the product of the merchandise, so that can also be considered tertiary in some ways of when you're thinking of like, what is the army.
So
and
how many of you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, like, even your dad is supporting, and he's like, you know what, like, let's do this podcast, because my daughter is like super into this, and it's, I think it ultimately comes to like a sense of loyalty and a sense of love. And
I was planning on wearing a t-shirt that had the phrase on it, "Old Army" in Korean, to the concert, but I was told I would get in trouble.
I would have made you an ajushi shirt. I would have done it.
I'm just teasing.
you know what
Any-
ajushi is?
Yeah.
No, I need to know. What is this?
It's so like if you're closer in age, you may be called like oppa, like older brother. But if it's like maybe Mr. Like or like sir, like someone who is much older.
Yeah. I fit the bill.
You're to me, you're more like samchin, like a uncle.
Well, I'll wear an uncle shirt. That's totally cool. That would have been. I really wish I could have gone.
Yeah, but you're still like part of the family, right?
That's no. Thank you very much. How many of you consider yourselves Army? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Is Yvin's hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, so you all consider yourself Army. Totally cool. Another question. How does Korean pop or K-pop differ from what you would call U.S. pop?
Oh,
It's way different.
I don't see K-pop as a genre, though. It's more
Okay.
just like a whole movement of music rather than, because within K-pop isn't just pop music, it's a whole mix of things. While pop music here is very pop, like that is the genre.
So would you say K-pop is a lifestyle, like reggae is somewhat of a lifestyle, ska is somewhat of a lifestyle? Is that what you're after, rock and roll? I mean, just curious. Anyone else? Differences between?
I feel like it's like a culture. Like it comes down to like, it's not like, and I've seen interviews about BTS being asked the same question, and like their response is, it's not just the music, it's the outfits, it's the way it's filmed, it's
the whole package.
It's like, it's a whole thing. That's why when I talk to you, Father,
Right. Yes, dear.
about
I'm uncle today.
when I talk to you about like you want to watch the dancing, and I tell you that like you can't just watch dancing because it's not.
You're right.
It's a whole thing. Like them filming with drones, like that's K-pop. Like no one else is gonna do that. Like, so like it's just a whole thing that is like above and beyond just music.
Anyone else?
In Korea, K-pop isn't called K-pop; it's called idol pop, and like the very like company like audition oriented culture of like very specific production styles, very specific adherences to like set aesthetics as well as the dance, and like that was what was branded, repackaged as K-pop when you started exporting it to like international audiences. So like K-pop in the US, we think of it as like all of it, but in Korea it's like a small subset of like the entertainment. And I think so when you think about like K-pop, you think of the huge productions, you think of like the album aesthetics, the outfits as you wear as you dance. But that production style is also considered a bit of a like, yeah, that's like really over the top.
So go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead. No, it doesn't matter.
But like, I mean, K-pop's been trying to break into the U.S. for years. I mean, it's as this big soft power tool. Like, if we can get them to enjoy our culture, then we can have big diplomatic advances. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they picked the most like choreographed, most polished version to export. Like, if you like watch TV shows, there are people like Anmu, there's like single musicians who are pop artists in Korea, but they don't have that level of production that would qualify them to be idol pop. So then when you export it,
right. No, that's fantastic. That's one of the things, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're having this podcast, because from a distance, a lot of people probably see K-pop as product, right? It's corporate product and it's polished. And back in the heyday of Hollywood, they would recruit people and they'd polish them with training. They'd get them singing and dancing. And there was a entertainment industry. What amazes me about this group is it seems as that may be how it started, but they have taken on their own non-product identity that almost transcends the genre. I'm using big words, but I've just been struck by the level of authenticity coming out of what might look like a product at first glance. And, and particularly in this album, it really seems like somehow they got some creative control, perhaps, that they hadn't had before, or it just seemed a logical next step. But all the things you've said about vulnerability, you're never going to hear, I don't know, maybe you would hear a boy band sing lyrics like, oh my God, what if this is the last time I like what I do, right? But I'm just not used to hearing that in pop music, what we would call product pop. American songwriters have been singing stuff like that forever, but product hasn't been doing that. So someone want to react to that?
I think BTS was a really unique situation, like even when you consider K-pop, like the company they came from, the early like years of their like their career, like, and I love the bands I'm about to mention. Like, if you look at groups like Twice or ITZY, like, their first music video came from JYP, like, one of these huge companies, and their first, like, their debut has, like, millions of views. It was, like, the last resort of a company on the verge of bankruptcy, and their first video got, like, 20,000 views tops when they released it. Like, yeah, this might be it.
Does BTS's success leave you optimistic about the power of love? And in other words, these guys have power. They have real power, and you mentioned it as soft power earlier. But as a parent, this is exactly the kind of music I would want my kid listening to, right? They're not denigrating anybody, right? They're affirming diversity. They're encouraging, at least from what I've seen. You guys can differ with me on this, please do. But they're basically, saying "do you" in very positive ways. Does that seem reasonable, or does that make sense? Or?
No, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that, it's definitely, BTS right now is one of the most recognizable, especially coming from being one of the last resort kind of things. And now their influence, right, like their fandom is so big, it's even encouraging people to want to learn more Korean, or to be aware of Korean culture in ways that previously people didn't know about.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that's a really huge piece for sure. And, you know, on top of that, they are, interestingly, like they're considered like sex symbols now.
Mhm.
And you know, that's also a big deal because, you know, a lot of times Korean or Asian men in general in the US are not given a lot of credit
Mhm.
for being able to be sexy. Like
Mhm.
that's something that's usually fetishized for women. And they are actually considered like heartthrobs. And
Mm.
they're also, you know, considered to be vulnerable in a lot of ways. They're great dancers, you know, they're fun, and people watch not just like their music videos, but just how they interact in general.
Mm. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And
It-
you know, they're also coming out with more and more songs, whereas like other bands who are even more eccentric, like Bang Bang, like, you know, there's so much time in between when they come out with something that like BTS is definitely getting a lot more recognition.
Excellent. So those are the questions that I have. So, is there anything about BTS that we haven't discussed that you would like to have on a podcast?
You know, so when you asked me if I wanted to do a podcast about why BTS is so good,
Mm-hmm.
I almost said no.
Mm-hmm.
For the only reason of, like, I love BTS and have for a couple years now. The more I get into K-pop, it has become really like unclear to me that if what they're doing is just K-pop, because like there's a lot of groups that are doing like the advocacy. Obviously BTS is doing a lot more of it, but like there's a lot of other groups doing that. There's a lot of like authenticity within other groups. So I was curious if it was just K-pop or if it was BTS. And the more I watch BTS, I definitely can tell that there's something different about them than those other groups. And it's possible that the generation is different. So BTS is the only, what are they? Second gen? Third gen? Yeah, I don't know. They're the only like group within that generation of K-pop that we watch. The other ones we watch are younger. So I don't know if like BTS has set a standard and everyone's just kind of like following, or
That was exactly what I was going to ask. Maybe BTS changed K-pop in the sense that, and I don't know what would be the measure, but to be honest, you know, you've shown me plenty of K-pop videos, and I watch them, and they're nice, and I enjoy the 3 or 4 minutes, but I'll probably never watch them again. I'm just going to be honest. But I've probably watched Black Swan, Jimmy Corbin 50 times, and I've probably watched On 50 times because it's not just another video.
right.
And I just have the distinct feeling that there's something incredibly unique about this group of young men that really changed. I don't know. I think they have purchased themselves some license in the world by just being who they are and how they portray that. And so you're right. I hope they've done more than change K-pop. I mean, when you watch Chicken Soup and you find that other artists from the global artists are wanting to be with them, they're actually teaching the world diversity and inclusion simply by being, right? Simply by creating this creative space where, you know, they can ask I'm going to say an Eastern European dance company to perform Black Swan, and it happens. I mean, who else does that? There's just some. Go ahead.
Even just like you bring up Chicken Noodle Soup, even just with that, it shows how much other music influences them, period. So Chicken Noodle Soup,
Old song.
right, is an old song
Yeah.
that J-Hope said that he learned how to dance to.
Right.
That's why he felt the need to do it again. So you just see how much other music influences what they do. So things like that, or like them collaborating with like Halsey and Boy With Love, or doing their collaborations with their BTS World stuff. You can just like tell that obviously there's other people influencing them, which is cool because then they use it to influence other people.
So then they actually become a part of the cultural system, as opposed to a group of guys that are outside of a system trying to get into it or something. They're actually sort of influencing and constraining what other people are trying to create, which is an exceptional position to be in. Anything else anyone wants to say about BTS and why they're so good?
Well, related to what you just said about diversity and inclusion, I mean, it's so when I get questions about K-pop music, I mean, many times I get questions like, so they're just, recruited and trained,
Yeah,
and they have to practice a lot, and then do they compose their songs or? So, I mean, there is this idea that K-pop music is a product, not art. So when, I get questions about comparing US pop and other Western European pop and K-pop, I can see that there is this, message implied there. So that's product. What we do here is pop. So
right.
what pisses me off is there are some, K-pop idol music industry that, does that in Korea and also in other, countries. However, as you said, BTS somehow elevated, themselves to a next different level, partly because of their authenticity and their talent, and also maybe the leadership by Bang Si-hyuk. He himself is an artist. But so he graduated with from a pretty good. So his family background is that he was, in the traditional Korean culture, if you are academically excellent, you either become a lawyer or a doctor. Expected to go to the top law university in Korea and major in law and become a lawyer, a judge. But then he decided to major in philosophy of art and aesthetics. Huge blow to his really rich and not royal, but really family. And so he had that huge taste for art and had the opportunity to learn about the philosophy behind behind art. And I think he has established his own philosophy about what art and or our product should be like, I guess. And so his leadership also encouraged and facilitated the growth of each member over the years, and he knew how to support their talent and autonomy in their own way rather than doing the factory job of
leadership matters, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, to be honest, some of that explains Black Swan. I know I keep going back to Black Swan, but if you've actually had to build an identity somewhat within a family that wanted you to do something different, and you've had to commit yourself to your passion for art, you'd be terrified of losing that. I mean, losing that, you would lose everything, right? So that's it makes that song even more important. Any final comments on BTS?
I just want to share this.
Please do.
It was Yvin's first concert. So I drove her and her friend to Chicago. And I didn't buy a ticket for myself. I was just getting some work done at Starbucks nearby. And I saw these, men and women sitting at Starbucks reading books or something. So I just didn't have a thought about it. But then they were talking, and I learned that they were all the parents of that drove for like 4 or 5 hours, or who flew from Colorado to the concert for their children. And I was talking with like 3 or 4 parents there, and all of them were parents of children of Chinese heritage or Korean heritage. So they said, it's my way of, giving them opportunity to reconnect their culture of origin and to take some pride in their Asian heritage. So from that perspective, BTS did a really good job at, to help us take some more pride in Asian heritage.
Well, that's fantastic. Holism, commitment to love, that's really something our culture could use these days, right? So good for them. So that about wraps it up for us. Thanks to this wonderful collection of BTS fans for joining me during tonight's conversation. From all of us to all of you, big hugs, and remember, Borehe Saranghae. Bye.